dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And you're back on Liberty Nation Radio. I remain Mark Angelides, and we're continuing our conversation with Liberty Nation's editor-at-large, Jim Fite. Jim, thanks for sticking around. Now, I did promise our audience something a little more positive, and for me and for you, I do believe that anything that bolsters gun rights in the United States, or anything that bolsters any aspect of the Constitution really in the United States, is a positive development. And there's something brewing with gun rights, isn't there, because of the passage of the big, beautiful bill?
Yes, there is. The House passed one version of the bill, and then, of course, it was drastically changed in the Senate. And part of those changes were because of the Senate parliamentarian, who's kind of a rulemaker appointed by the Senate Majority Leader. Not every time they turn over the Senate necessarily, but just for as long as that person holds the job. And one of those things in the House version, so the National Firearms Act of 1934 regulated machine gun. That's why you can't go buy a Tommy gun, right? Like that regulated machine guns, but it also regulated what's called short-barreled rifles and short-barreled shotguns, which are just regular old rifles and shotguns that have a barrel length shorter than some arbitrarily assigned number of inches.
Like 15 and a half, is it?
It's under 16 for rifles and under 18 for shotguns. Okay. I wasn't going to bog everybody down in the numbers, but
hey, it's good to know, right?
It is good to know, though, especially if you have one.
I can hear hundreds of thousands of Americans reaching for their tape measures right now.
Right? Yeah. Well, it's crazy, and I was talking to our executive director, Lisa Donner, and about this a few days back, and it's like, the crazy thing is you could build a rifle. You can get rifle kits and build your own rifle, which is very popular, especially in the kind of the AR community. You can build you a rifle.
That's Armalite rifle rather than Arivas, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 Well, I don't know. There's a lot of those guys in Arizona too. But anyways, yeah. So put you an 18-inch barrel on there. Great, you got a rifle. But if you take that barrel off and put a 14-inch barrel, you've got a felony. Unless you've registered it. And what makes it even more ridiculous is on that same build, well, you take the buttstock off and go with a pistol build, and your AR is now a pistol. And once again, legal. It's definitely some arbitrary rules. But to get back on not the rabbit trail too far down into gun nerddom. So the big, beautiful bill passed by the House actually removed short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and silencers from the NFA entirely.
Okay.
Or would have if they were passed. So in other words, you could just buy or build these guns that were at one point classified the same way as a machine gun, even though mechanically it's no different from any other rifle. The Senate parliamentarian ruled, well, that's a violation of the Byrd Rule. And the Byrd Rule is this rule that come out of the 70s. Specifically to budget reconciliation bills, which are, normally, boy, there's a lot of backtracking to get to the basic input, right? So in the Senate, we have this, the process of invoking cloture to avoid or to end a filibuster, which is why we get the idea of like, okay, well, legislation requires 60 votes to pass in the Senate instead of just 51. Well, budget reconciliation allows you to make a budget bill specifically dealing with federal revenue and spending, and bypass that process and just pass it with a simple majority. Well, the Byrd Rule says nothing that isn't strictly budget related can be included. So she rules that this removal of these items from the NFA violates the Byrd Rule. Well, now here's the problem with that. And so that's in the version that got passed and signed into law. But here's the problem with that. In 1937, the Supreme Court ruled that the NFA was constitutional because it absolutely is a tax. In fact, it was structured,
and the circle closes, right?
Yeah, it was structured as a tax because they knew that it wouldn't pass muster any other way. And so now, so what? How do you square that circle, right? So now,
sure,
there's actually a lawsuit where gun advocates are suing because we have this incongruency, right? We have these items that were supposed to be removed from the NFA. Well, they can't be because they're not a tax. Well, why can't they be? Because the Supreme Court already said it is a tax. So the eventual process, what actually happened in the bill that passed, the big beautiful bill that passed, was they just reduced that $200 fee that you would have to pay to register it down to $0, which, what's a $0 tax, right? So that kind of guts it on another level. But now gun advocates are suing to have these items removed from the NFA.
Right. Let me just clarify this for my own mind. So 1934, it comes in saying you can't have this, that, and the other. And it's sorry,
you can have it. They can't ban you from it.
Sure.
You just have to pay the tax and get on the Federal Register.
And then in 1937, the Supreme Court ruled that because it's a tax and taxes are levied by Congress, that it holds. It's therefore constitutional.
Right.
And now Congress has just passed, and Donald Trump signed, that there's a zero tax on it. And therefore, it actually does this mean, well, I guess this is the lawsuit's claim, is that therefore it no longer exists, and therefore it's no longer a constitutional thing because it's a $0 tax, right?
Yeah, wrap your mind around that one. It's a brain bender, isn't it? But
it is. It is a brain bender. However, legislation, court cases are often brought forward and designed and enacted through circuitous means. It's not always a straightforward thing. Like even the passage of it was ruled constitutional by the 1937 Supreme Court because it was a tax levied by Congress.
Yep. And in fact, it was actually the original legislation was built on the legislation that reclassified certain drugs into controlled substances as a tax issue.
Right. So what does this... I mean, we don't know how the court case will go, but I'm reasonably sure it's going to go beyond just its first court stop.
Oh, yeah.
This kind of thing.
I expected a lawsuit like this to happen. I was shocked, not that it happened, but by how quickly it happened.
Well, this kind of people are preparing for these things. There are so many organizations out there that are looking to protect American Second Amendment rights, and they're looking for, I guess you'd call it chinks in the armor for how to proceed with them. So they probably had the people who are bringing this forward. They've probably had something like this in place already.
If not before the measure was added to the legislation to begin with, just as a just in case, then at least once the parliamentarian ruled that it violated the birth rule. At that point, wheels were spinning and pens were scribbling on paper. I mean, people were working on this at that point.
Yeah. James Fite, thanks ever so much. Really appreciate you being here.
Appreciate it, Mark.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.